The stars burned cold and distant as Talveth watched his world die. From the command center of the great space station, he could see the enemy ships moving like black death across the galaxy. The Void Hunters had come again, and this time they would not stop until everything was gone. Talveth's pale blue skin trembled as he touched the emergency beacon. His long fingers shook as he began the message that would go out to every corner of the galaxy. The message was simple and desperate. Help us, please, anyone who can hear this. We are dying. The Galactic Council of Peaceful Worlds had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had built great cities among the stars. They had made trade routes that connected distant worlds. They had brought peace to hundreds of different species. But they had never learned to fight. They had never needed to. Now the Void Hunters were coming, and the Council's beautiful ships with their gentle energy weapons could not stop them. The Hunters ate entire star systems. They turned planets into dust. They killed everything that lived and left only emptiness behind. Far away, on the edge of known space, Captain Juan stood on the bridge of the ship called New Sol. The ship was not beautiful like the Council vessels. It was made of thick metal and heavy armor. It carried weapons that could crack planets. It was built by humans, and humans built things to last. Juan was a tall man with dark hair and serious eyes. He had led the New Sol for 10 years, carrying 20,000 human colonists to their new home on Kepler 442b. The planet was harsh and dangerous. But humans were used to harsh and dangerous places. They had come from Earth, after all. The bridge was busy with activity. Officer Jisoo sat at her station, listening to signals from across the galaxy. She was young and smart, with quick fingers that danced across her controls. Suddenly she stopped moving. Her face went pale. "Captain," she said in a quiet voice, "I'm getting a distress signal." It's from aliens." Juan moved quickly to her station. The other officers gathered around. Chief Engineer Nari was there, her hands still dirty from working on the engines. Weapons Specialist Dohyun came running from his post, his uniform neat and clean. Medical Officer Yuna looked up from her reports, her kind eyes wide with surprise. They had been searching for other intelligent life for decades. Humans had sent signals into space for hundreds of years, hoping someone would answer, but the galaxy had been silent. Until now, Jisoo played the message. The voice was strange and musical, speaking in a language they had never heard. But the computer could translate it. The words came through clearly. "Help us, please, anyone who can hear this. We are dying." The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at Captain Juan. He was the one who had to decide. The human colony ships had orders to avoid contact with aliens until Earth could send proper diplomats. But this was different. This was a cry for help. "Tell me about the signal," Juan said. Jisoo worked at her controls. "It's coming from the Galactic Core, sir. About 3,000 light-years from here. The signal is very strong. They must be using a lot of power to send it this far." Nari stepped forward. She was small but tough, with clever eyes that missed nothing. "Captain, our jump drives can get us there in 2 weeks. But the fuel cost will be huge. We might not have enough to get back." Dohyun crossed his arms. He was a soldier, trained to think about danger first. "Sir, we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be hostile. This could be a trap." Yuna shook her head. "No," she said softly. "I heard the fear in that voice. That was real. Someone is dying out there." Juan walked to the big window that looked out at the stars. He had been in space for most of his life. He had seen the beauty and the terror of the void. He knew that space was vast and cold and lonely. If someone was calling for help, how could they turn away? "Jisoo," he said finally, "send a reply. Tell them we received their message. Tell them we're coming." Jisoo's fingers flew over her controls. She sent the message in every language the computer knew, hoping the aliens would understand at least one of them. The signal went out across the dark, carrying humanity's first words to the stars. "We hear you. We are coming. Hold on." 3,000 light-years away, Talveth received the response. He could hardly believe it. Someone had answered. Someone was coming to help. He called his aide, a small creature named Vixana, who moved like a bird and spoke in whispers. "Ready our fastest ship," Talveth said. "We must prepare for first contact." These beings called themselves humans. We know nothing about them, but they answered our call. They must be good and peaceful like us. Vixana nodded and hurried away. Neither of them knew what they had done. Neither of them knew that they had just contacted the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They thought they were calling for allies. They had no idea they were about to meet Deathworlders. On the new Sol, Captain Juan called his senior staff to the meeting room. The room was simple and practical with metal walls and bright lights. There were no decorations, no art. Humans built things to work, not to look pretty. "We're going to help them," Juan said. "But we need to be ready for anything. Nari, I want the engines running at full power. Do-hyun, check all our weapon systems. Yuna, prepare the medical bay for alien physiology. Jisoo, keep monitoring their signals." Each officer nodded and left to do their work. Only Communications Officer Somin remained. She was older than the others, with gray in her hair and wisdom in her eyes. She had been a diplomat before joining the colony mission. "Captain," she said carefully, "what if they don't want our kind of help? What if they expect something gentler?" Juan looked at her with serious eyes. "Then they'll learn that sometimes the galaxy sends you what you need, not what you want." The new Sol turned toward the galactic core and jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the human colony on Kepler 442b continued their quiet lives, farming and building and raising children under an alien sun. They had no idea that their protectors were about to change the galaxy forever. In the void between stars, the ship flew toward its destiny. In the cargo holds, human weapons waited in silence. In the armory, soldiers checked their gear. In the engine room, Nari sang old Korean songs as she worked. They were coming to help. They were coming to save peaceful aliens from a terrible enemy. They had no idea that their arrival would terrify their new allies almost as much as their enemies. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really like. The human ship New Sol dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven 7 system. Captain Juan stood on the bridge, watching the alien world grow larger on the main screen. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The planet glowed with soft blue light, covered in crystal cities that reached toward the sky like frozen music. "My God," whispered Officer Jisoo. "Look at it." Around the planet, hundreds of alien ships moved in perfect patterns. They were sleek and graceful, made of materials that seemed to bend light around them. Each ship glowed with the same soft blue as the planet. They looked like artwork, not warships. "Captain," said Do-Yun from his weapons station, "I'm reading their ship designs. These aren't military vessels. They have energy shields, but their weapons are strange. They seem designed to stun, not destroy." Nari looked up from her engineering console. "Sir, their technology is incredible. Their ships use some kind of gravity manipulation for movement. But their hulls are thin, very thin. One of our missiles could punch right through." Before Juan could respond, Jisoo's console lit up with an incoming message. "Captain, they're trying to contact us. They're using something called Universal Peace Protocols." "Put them on screen," Juan said. The main screen filled with an alien face. Talveth was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. His eyes were large and kind, and when he spoke, his voice was like gentle music. "Greetings, beings from the ship New Sol," Talveth said. "I am Council Leader Talveth. We are grateful beyond words that you answered our call for help. We invite you to send representatives to our diplomatic vessel for first contact protocols." Captain Juan nodded. "This is Captain Juan of the human vessel New Sol. We came as soon as we received your message. We're ready to help however we can." Talveth smiled and his face lit up with joy. "Wonderful. We have prepared quarters for your delegation aboard our ship Peaceful Dawn. We look forward to learning about your civilization and discussing how we might work together against the Void Hunters." 2 hours later, Captain Juan and Diplomat Soman stood in the transport chamber, ready to beam over to the alien ship. Soman wore her best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with gold trim. She carried a briefcase full of information about human culture and history. "Remember," Juan told her quietly, "we don't know anything about their customs. Be polite, but don't promise anything we can't deliver." Soman nodded. She was nervous but excited. This was humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. Everything she said and did would be remembered forever. The transport beam surrounded them, and suddenly they were standing in a room that looked like the inside of a pearl. The walls curved gracefully, glowing with soft light. The air smelled like flowers and tasted like spring rain. Talveth waited for them with his aide, a small creature named Vixana who moved like a dancing bird. Both aliens were smiling, their faces bright with happiness. "Welcome, humans," Talveth said. "You are the first new species we have met in 300 years. This is a historic moment. Juan and Soman followed their host through corridors that twisted and flowed like living things. Other aliens watched them pass, creatures of many different shapes and sizes. Some looked like walking crystals. Others were fuzzy and round like living clouds. All of them stared at the humans with curious, friendly eyes. They reached a conference room with a table made of what looked like solid light. Talaveth gestured for them to sit in chairs that adjusted themselves to fit human bodies. "Now," Talaveth said happily, "tell us about your wonderful species. What is your homeworld like? What are your people like? We are so excited to learn." Soman opened her briefcase and pulled out a data pad. She had prepared for this moment for years. "Well," she began, "humans come from a planet called Earth. It's a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents." She showed them pictures of Earth's landscapes, mountains and forests, beaches and cities. The aliens made happy sounds as they looked at the images. "How lovely," Vixana whispered. "Such pretty colors. Your world must be very peaceful." Soman paused. She looked at Captain Juan, who nodded for her to continue. "Actually," she said carefully, "Earth is what we call a challenging environment. The weather can be quite extreme. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that split the ground, and volcanoes that can change the climate." Talveth's smile flickered. "Oh, that sounds difficult, but your people adapted, of course. You learned to live in harmony with nature." "In a way," Soman said. "But we also learned to fight back. We built shelters that could survive hurricanes. We developed warning systems for earthquakes. We learned to predict volcanic eruptions and evacuate in time." The aliens exchanged worried glances. On their worlds, such disasters were rare and gentle. Their technology simply moved them away from danger. The idea of fighting against nature was strange and troubling. "Tell us about your history," Talveth said, trying to smile again. "Your species must have a long tradition of peaceful cooperation." Soman hesitated. This was the part she had been dreading. "Well, humans have fought many wars throughout our history. We've had conflicts over territory, resources, and beliefs, but we've also learned from these experiences. Each war taught us something about ourselves and about peace." Vixana made a small, frightened sound. "Wars, you mean violence, actual fighting?" "I'm afraid so," Soman said gently. "For example, we had 2 great global conflicts in the 20th century. Millions of people died. We even developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds." Talveth stood up so quickly that his chair fell over. His blue skin had turned pale white. "Nuclear weapons?" he whispered. "You created nuclear weapons?" "Yes," Captain Juan said quietly. "But we also learned to control them. We made treaties. We built systems to prevent accidents. We turned our nuclear technology toward peaceful purposes like power generation and space travel." The conference room fell silent. The aliens stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. Finally, Talveth sat down again, his hands shaking. "Your planet," he said slowly. "What classification is it?" Soman looked confused. "Classification?" "Planetary danger rating," Vixana explained in a tiny voice. "Most civilized worlds are Class 1 or Class 2. Very safe, very peaceful. What class is Earth?" Samin looked at her datapad and found the information. According to our scientists, Earth would be classified as a Class 13 world. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, frequent natural disasters, and aggressive dominant species. The silence that followed was so complete that Soman could hear her own heartbeat. Talveth's face had gone completely white. Vixana was making small whimpering sounds. "Class 2, Talveth whispered. That's a death world. No civilized species lives on death worlds. Only the most savage predators survive on such planets." Captain Juan leaned forward. "With respect, Talveth, we're not savages. We're explorers, scientists, artists, and yes, soldiers when we need to be. We came here to help you because that's what decent people do." "But your weapons," Vixana said, her voice shaking. "We scanned your ship. You have kinetic projectile weapons. Nuclear missiles. Mass drivers. Those are designed to kill, not to stun or disable." "Yes," Juan said simply, "because sometimes you need to kill your enemies to protect your friends." Before anyone could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the walls themselves seemed to pulse with urgency. An alien voice spoke in their musical language, fear making the words sharp and discordant. Talveth jumped to his feet. "The Void Hunters," he said. "They've found us. Their advanced scouts just entered the system. Through the conference room's window, they could see dark shapes moving between the stars. The Void Hunter ships looked like insects made of black metal and organic matter. They moved with hungry purpose toward the peaceful blue planet. "We must flee," Vixana said, tears streaming down her face. "Ready the evacuation ships. We'll lose another world, but perhaps some of our people can escape." Captain Juan stood up slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard as steel. "No," he said quietly. "You called for help. You're going to get it." He touched his communication device. Juan to New Sol, red alert. "Enemy contact. Prepare for battle." Talveth stared at him in shock. "You can't fight them." "No one fights the Void Hunters. They're too strong, too many. You'll be destroyed." Juan looked out at the approaching enemy ships. "Maybe," he said. "But we came here to help, and that's what we're going to do." "You wanted allies, Talveth. Well, you just met a species that doesn't know how to run away." The first Void Hunter ship opened fire on a council vessel. The graceful alien ship's shields flared and died, and the ship itself was torn apart in seconds. More dark ships poured into the system like a swarm of hungry insects. "Dear God," Soman whispered. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Captain Juan was already heading for the door. "We've gotten ourselves into a fight," he said grimly. "And humans are very good at fighting." The Void Hunter fleet spread across the Haven 7 system like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships were nightmares made real, twisted combinations of black steel and living flesh that pulsed with dark energy. Each vessel was the size of a city, covered in weapons that seemed to grow from the hull like cancerous tumors. Captain Juan stood on the bridge of the New Sol, watching the enemy approach. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had drilled for this moment their entire lives, even though they had never expected to face alien enemies. "Do-hyun, what's our tactical situation?" Juan asked. Weapons specialist Do-hyun studied his screens with intense focus. "Sir, I count 47 enemy vessels. They're using some kind of bioorganic technology. Energy weapons, but not like anything we've seen before. They seem to drain power from their targets." At the engineering station, Nari was already running calculations. "Captain, their weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. They want to capture ships intact. But our kinetic weapons should punch right through their hulls." "Good," Juan said grimly. "Jisoo, open a channel to the Council fleet." On the main screen, Talveth's face appeared. The alien leader looked terrified, his blue skin pale with fear. Behind him, other council members ran back and forth in panic. "Captain Juan," Talveth said, his voice shaking, "you must flee. Your single ship cannot stand against the Hunter fleet. We're ordering full evacuation. Perhaps some of our people can escape to the outer colonies." "Negative," Juan replied. "We didn't come here to run." "How many ships do you have in the system?" 67 vessels, Talveth said. "But they're not warships. They're exploration vessels, cargo ships, research stations. Our weapons are designed for peaceful purposes." Juan nodded. "Understood. We'll handle the combat. Keep your ships back and focus on protecting civilians." "But you're only one ship," Vixana protested from behind Talveth. "The Hunters have never been defeated. They absorb entire fleets. They turn our own weapons against us." "Then it's a good thing we're not using your weapons," Juan said. He turned to his tactical officer. "Hyunwoo, you're our best strategist. Give me options." Tactical Officer Hyunwoo was young but brilliant, with quick eyes that saw patterns others missed. He had studied every battle in human history, from ancient Earth wars to the colonial conflicts on the Outer Rim. "Sir," Hyunwoo said, "their ships are big and powerful, but they move in predictable patterns. They're used to fighting enemies who use energy weapons. Our kinetic projectiles should surprise them." Marine Commander Jinhwan stepped forward. He was a big man with scars on his hands and ice in his eyes. "Captain, if we can get close enough, my Marines can board their ships. These bioorganic vessels might be vulnerable to good old-fashioned explosives." Do-hyun smiled grimly. "Sir, I recommend we start with long-range missile strikes. Let's see how they handle a nuclear warhead traveling at 10% of light speed." Juan looked around at his crew. They were scared, he could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. They had come to help, and they would not back down. "All right," he said. "Here's what we're going to do. Nari, give me maximum power to engines and weapons. Do-hyun, prepare the missile tubes. Hyunwoo, plot us an attack course. Jinhwan, get your Marines ready for boarding actions." As the crew prepared for battle, the Void Hunters moved closer to Haven 7. Their ships began draining energy from the Council vessels, leaving them helpless and drifting. The aliens' beautiful energy shields flickered and died one by one. New soul to all council ships, Juan broadcast. Move away from the planet. Get to minimum safe distance. We're going in. The human ship accelerated toward the enemy fleet. It was small compared to the hunter vessels, but it moved with purpose and speed. The aliens watched in amazement as the tiny ship charged directly at the massive enemy formation. They're insane, whispered one council member. No, Talveth said quietly. They're brave. The first Void Hunter ship detected the new soul and turned its weapons toward the approaching human vessel. Bioorganic cannons fired streams of dark energy that could drain the life from any machine. The energy beams struck the new soul's hull and bounced off. The human ship's armor was too primitive for the draining effect to work. The bioweapons were designed to corrupt advanced technology, not simple steel and ceramic plates. Their weapons aren't working, Nari reported with surprise. The energy drain requires sophisticated electronics to interface with. Our armor is too basic. Then let's show them what basic can do, Juan said. Dohyun, fire! The new soul launched its first missile. It was a simple nuclear warhead attached to a basic rocket motor, the kind of weapon humans had been building for centuries. The Void Hunter's bioships had never encountered anything like it. The missile struck the lead hunter vessel and exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. The bioorganic hull, designed to absorb energy weapons, simply vaporized. A ship the size of a city died in seconds. Across the hunter fleet, alarm calls echoed through bio-neural networks. This was impossible. Nothing could destroy their ship so easily. What were these primitive weapons? Direct hit, Doyun reported. Enemy vessel destroyed. The others are pulling back, but they're regrouping. More hunter ships turned toward the new soul, their weapons fired in coordinated salvos, trying to overwhelm the small human vessel. But every beam that hit the ship's hull simply slid off the basic armor plating. Hyunwoo studied the enemy formation. Captain, they're trying to surround us. Classic pincer movement. But look at their positioning. They're keeping precise distances from each other. They're fighting like a computer program. Because they probably are, Juan realized. Bio-neural networks. They're all connected, thinking as one organism. That's their strength, but it's also their weakness. And how so? Asked Jisoo. Because they can't adapt quickly to unexpected tactics, Hyunwoo explained. They're used to fighting enemies who follow logical patterns. But humans don't always fight logically. Juan smiled grimly. Nari, can you give me a rapid course change? Something unpredictable? Sir, I can give you a flight pattern that would make a pilot sick, Nari said with a grin. Hold on to something. The new soul suddenly twisted in space, diving under the hunter formation and coming up behind them. The bioships tried to adjust, but their coordinated movements became confused. They had never fought an enemy that moved so chaotically. Now, Juan ordered. The human ship unleashed its full arsenal. Kinetic projectiles fired from railguns. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. Nuclear missiles streaked toward targets that couldn't understand how to defend against them. Mass driver rounds, nothing more than big bullets fired very fast, punched through bioorganic hulls like paper. 5 hunter ships died in the first volley, then 10. The bio-neural network began to panic, sending confused signals throughout the fleet. How could primitive weapons be so effective? On the council ships, the aliens watched in stunned silence. Their rescuers were fighting with weapons they considered ancient and barbaric, but those weapons were winning. Incredible, breathed Talveth. They're actually pushing the hunters back. Dr. Yuna worked frantically in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members. The new soul was taking hits, even if the enemy weapons weren't very effective, but the injuries she was seeing were minor compared to what she had expected. Bridge, this is medical, she reported. Casualties are light. The enemy weapons seem designed for capture, not destruction. We're lucky. Not lucky, Juan corrected. Smart. The hunters want to capture technology, not destroy it. That's why they've never faced serious resistance before. More Void Hunter ships moved to attack, but now they were hesitant. Their bio-neural network was sending confused signals. These humans fought in ways that made no sense. They used weapons that should have been obsolete. They moved their ship in patterns that seemed random but were somehow effective. Jinwan's voice came over the comm system. Captain, we've got hunter boarding pods incoming. Looks like they're trying to capture us the old-fashioned way. Let them come, Juan said. Marines, prepare to repel boarders. The bioorganic pods attached to the new soul's hull and burned through the armor. Hunter warriors poured into the ship, expecting to face soft aliens with energy weapons. Instead, they met human marines with assault rifles, grenades, and centuries of experience in close combat. The fight was brutal and short. The hunters had never faced an enemy that was willing to die fighting. Boarding pods neutralized, Jinhuan reported. These things don't know how to handle good old-fashioned bullets. The tide of battle was turning. More hunter ships pulled back, their bio-neural network overwhelmed by input it couldn't process. How could such primitive beings be so dangerous? But the hunters were not finished. Deep in their formation, the largest ship began to glow with dark energy. It was their command vessel, and it was preparing to use their most powerful weapon. "Captain," Do-hyun said urgently. Massive energy buildup in the large vessel. "Whatever they're charging up, it's big." Hwan looked at the tactical display. The hunter command ship was the size of a small moon, covered in bioweapons that pulsed with malevolent life. If it fired at full power, even the new soul might not survive. "Hyunwoo," Hwan said quietly. "How do we kill something that big?" The young tactical officer studied his. The hunter command ship hung in space like a dark moon, its bioorganic surface pulsing with deadly energy. Captain Hwan stared at the massive vessel through the new soul's view screen, his mind racing through possibilities. Behind him, his crew waited for orders that might be their last. "Sir," Tactical Officer Hyunwoo said quietly, "the command ship is charging some kind of planet-killer weapon. We have maybe 5 minutes before it fires." "Then we need to move fast," Hwan replied. He turned to his crew. "Nari, can you overload our reactor safely?" Chief Engineer Nari's fingers flew over her console. "I can give you a controlled overload, sir. Enough power for one massive acceleration, but the engines will burn out afterward." "Do it." Jisoo, open a channel to the Council fleet. On the main screen, Talveth appeared. The alien leader's face was tight with fear as he watched the Hunter command ship preparing to destroy his world. "Captain Hwan," Talveth said desperately, "you must retreat. That ship can crack planets in half. There's nothing you can do against it." "Maybe not," Hwan admitted, "but we can try. Talveth, I need you to do something for me. Gather every council ship you have and move them to the far side of the planet. When we attack the command ship, things are going to get messy." "Attack?" Vixana whispered from behind Talveth. "That ship is 20 times your size." "It's suicide," probably, Hwan agreed. "But that's what humans do. We fight impossible odds because somebody has to." Before Talveth could respond, Hwan cut the transmission. He looked around at his crew, seeing determination mixed with fear on every face. "Listen up," he said. "We all knew this mission was dangerous. We came here to help people we'd never met. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Hyunwoo, what's your craziest plan?" The young tactical officer took a deep breath. "Sir, that command ship is bioorganic. It thinks like a living creature. But it's also huge, which means it can't change direction quickly. If we can get close enough, we ram it," Do-hyun finished. "Sir, I've been studying their ship design. The command center appears to be in the front section. If we hit it there with full reactor overload, we'll punch right through," Nari added. "But the explosion will destroy us too." Medical Officer Yuna stepped forward. "Captain, there might be another way. I've been analyzing the bio-neural network signals. These creatures are all connected mentally. If we could disrupt that connection—" "How?" Hwan asked. "Electromagnetic pulse," Yuna said. "A strong enough EMP burst could scramble their bio-neural communications. Without coordination, they'd be just individual ships. But we'd need to get an EMP device inside their command ship," Hyunwoo pointed out. "Past their defenses into their neural center." Marine Commander Jinhuan grinned fiercely. "Leave that to me, sir. My Marines know how to infiltrate enemy positions." Hwan looked around at his crew. They were offering to sacrifice themselves to save aliens they'd just met. It was the most human thing he'd ever seen. "All right," he said. "New plan. We're going to hit them with everything we've got. But we're not going to die doing it. Jinhuan, get your best infiltration team ready. Nari, I need you to build the biggest EMP device our reactor can power. Do-hyun, prepare every missile we have left. And Hyunwoo, sir, figure out how to keep us alive through this." As the crew scattered to their tasks, Intelligence Officer Tae-hyung appeared on the bridge. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time listening to enemy communications and planning covert operations. "Captain," Tae-hyung said, "I've been monitoring Hunter communications. They're confused by our tactics. They've never fought an enemy that uses such primitive weapons effectively." "Good," Hwan said. "Confusion is our friend. What else? They're calling us the mad species, Taehyung continued. They can't understand why we don't retreat when faced with superior numbers. They think we're either insane or too stupid to recognize danger. Fleet Coordinator Minji looked up from her station. Sir, the council ships are asking for orders. They want to help, but they don't know how. Juan thought for a moment. Tell them to coordinate their energy shields. If they link them together, they might be able to create a barrier to protect the planet when that command ship fires. But Captain, Minji protested, their weapons can't hurt the hunters. No, but their shields can buy us time, Juan replied, and time is what we need. In the engineering section, Nari worked frantically to build the EMP device. She pulled components from the ship's computers, weapon systems, and even the coffee makers. Every piece of electronic equipment became part of her improvised weapon. This is either going to work perfectly or blow up in our faces, she muttered as she welded circuits together. In the Marine quarters, Jin Hwan selected his infiltration team. Sergeants Kyungjae and Haewon were his best soldiers, trained in zero-gravity combat and explosive demolition. Listen up, Jin Hwan told them. We're going to board that command ship and plant an EMP device in their neural center. It's a one-way trip, but if we succeed, we save an entire planet. Kyungjae checked his assault rifle. Sir, how do we find the neural center in a ship that big? Follow the bio-neural conduits, Jin Hwan explained. They'll lead us to the brain. And remember, these creatures have never fought Marines before. We're going to teach them why humans are apex predators. On the bridge, Do-hyun finished loading the last of their missiles. Captain, all weapons ready. But once we fire everything, we'll be defenseless. Then we'd better make every shot count, Juan said. Jisoo, any word from the enemy? Communications Officer Jisoo shook her head. They're maintaining radio silence, sir. But I'm detecting massive energy buildups across their fleet. They're preparing for something big. Through the view screen, they could see the hunter fleet repositioning itself. The smaller ships formed a protective screen around the command vessel, which continued to charge its planet-killing weapon. Sir, Hyunwoo reported, I've plotted our attack course. We'll approach from their blind spot, using the planet's gravity to accelerate our assault shuttles. But the timing has to be perfect. How perfect? Juan asked. Within 3 seconds, Hyunwoo admitted. If we're late, the command ship will fire and destroy the planet. If we're early, their defenses will be ready for us. Juan nodded grimly. No pressure then. Nari, is the EMP device ready? As ready as a jury-rigged piece of equipment can be, Nari replied. But Captain, I should warn you. When this thing goes off, it'll fry every electronic system within 50 kilometers, including our own. Will we survive it? Asked Yuna. The crew will, Nari said. But the ship will be dead in space. No engines, no weapons, no life support. We'll have maybe 30 minutes of air before the backup systems fail. Then we'd better finish this fight in 29 minutes, Juan said. All right, people, this is it. Jin Hwan, get your team to the assault shuttles. Taehyung, I want you monitoring enemy communications. If their coordination breaks down, I need to know immediately. As the Marines moved toward the shuttle bay, Dr. Yuna made one last check of the ship's medical systems. Captain, I've prepared emergency medical kits for the infiltration team. And, sir, it's been an honor serving with you. Juan looked around at his crew. They were about to attempt something that was probably impossible. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and far from home. But they were human, and humans didn't give up. The honor has been mine, he said quietly. All of you came on this mission knowing it was dangerous. You answered a call for help from people you'd never met. You're about to risk everything to save a world that isn't even your own. That's what makes us human. On the council ships, Talveth watched the small human vessel preparing for its final attack. Around him, his people worked to link their energy shields together, creating a barrier that might protect their planet from the hunter weapon. They're really going to do it, Vixana whispered. They're going to attack that massive ship with just one vessel. Yes, Talveth said softly. And now I understand what humans really are. They're not just allies, they're guardians. The new Soul began its attack run, accelerating toward the Hunter command ship at speeds that would have crushed most alien crews. But humans were built to survive on a death world, and their bodies could handle forces that would kill other species. Attack shuttles away, Jinwan reported from the shuttle bay. Marines are en route to target. All missiles firing, Do-hyun announced. Nuclear warheads streaked toward the Hunter fleet, followed by kinetic projectiles and mass driver rounds. The battle for Haven 7 was about to reach its climax. and the galaxy would never be the same. For Earth, Captain Juan said quietly. For humanity. For everyone who can't fight for themselves. For the people we've never met, his crew replied in unison. The new soul plunged into battle like a sword of light, carrying the hopes of two species toward an uncertain destiny. The assault shuttles cut through space like bullets, carrying Marine Commander Jinwan and his team toward the massive Hunter command ship. Behind them, the new soul fired everything it had at the enemy fleet, nuclear fire blooming against the darkness of space. 2 minutes to target, reported Sergeant Kyungjae from the pilot's seat. Through the shuttle's view screen, the Hunter command ship grew larger and larger until it filled their entire view. The bioorganic surface writhed and pulsed like living skin, covered in weapon ports that tracked their approach. Remember the plan, Jinwan said to his team. Get to the neural center, plant the EMP device, and get out. Simple. Since when is boarding an alien ship the size of a city simple? Asked Sergeant Haywon, but she was smiling as she checked her explosives. The Hunter defensive systems opened fire, streams of bioenergy lashing out at the tiny shuttles. But the human vessels were small and fast, weaving between the attacks with desperate skill. Hang on, Kyungjae shouted as he threw the shuttle into a spinning dive that brought them underneath the command ship's main guns. Boarding in 30 seconds. On the New Soul's bridge, Captain Juan watched his missiles strike the Hunter fleet. 5 enemy ships died in nuclear fire, their bioorganic hulls simply vaporizing under the assault. But the command ship's weapons were almost fully charged. Sir, reported Tactical Officer Hyun-woo, the command ship is targeting the planet. They're going to fire in 90 seconds. Where are my Marines? Juan demanded. Jinwan's team just boarded the command ship, Communications Officer Jisoo replied. But sir, I'm reading massive Hunter reinforcements incoming. 50 more ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Juan felt his heart sink. Even if they destroyed the command ship, the reinforcements would finish what the First Fleet had started. Haven 7 was doomed unless… Minji, he called to Fleet Coordinator Minji. How many council ships do we have? 67 vessels, sir. But they're not warships. No, but they have energy systems we can use. Juan's mind raced through possibilities. Contact every council ship. Tell them to overload their power cores on my signal. Sir? Minji looked confused. That would destroy their ships. Yes, but the energy release might be enough to disrupt the Hunter reinforcements when they arrive. Juan turned to his crew. People, we're about to attempt something that's never been tried before. We're going to turn a civilian fleet into a weapon. Deep inside the Hunter command ship, Jinwan and his Marines fought their way through corridors that seemed to be made of living tissue. The walls pulsed with bioneural conduits and the air smelled like rotting meat. This way, Jinwan said, following the thickest cluster of neural pathways. The brain should be at the center of the ship. Hunter warriors attacked them from side passages, but the aliens had never faced human Marines in close combat. Kyungjae's assault rifle cut down 3 of them before they could even raise their own weapons. These things don't know how to fight in corridors, Haywon observed as she tossed a grenade around a corner. They're used to space battles, not boarding actions. They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. The walls were covered in bioneural tissue that pulsed with electrical activity. In the center sat a creature the size of a building, its brain exposed and connected to thousands of neural cables. That's it, Jinwan said. The command mind. Haywon, plant the EMP device right next to that brain. As Haywon worked, more Hunter warriors poured into the chamber. The Marines formed a defensive circle, their weapons chattering as they held off wave after wave of attackers. Device is armed, Haywon reported. 30 seconds to detonation. Time to go, Jinwan said. But as they turned to leave, he saw that the corridor they had entered through was blocked by Hunter forces. They were trapped. On the New Sol, Intelligence Officer Tae-hyung monitored enemy communications. Captain, something's happening to the Hunter fleet. Their coordination is breaking down. Ships are firing on each other. The EMP device, Dr. Yuna realized, it's disrupting their bioneural network. But the command ship is still charging its weapon, Do-hyun warned. 60 seconds to planetary bombardment. Juan made his decision. All hands prepare for ramming speed. Nari, give me everything the reactor has got. Sir, if we ram that ship at full power, we'll be destroyed, Engineer Nari protested. Maybe, Juan said, but we'll take them with us. And our Marines will have time to escape. The new soul accelerated toward the command ship like a missile. Behind them, the Council fleet began linking their energy shields together, creating a barrier that might protect the planet from the hunter weapon. Inside the command ship, Jin Huan heard the countdown on his communicator. 10 seconds to EMP detonation. Take cover! The device exploded in a burst of electromagnetic energy that fried every electronic system within 50 kilometers. The command ship's lights went out, and the massive brain at the center of the chamber let out a scream that shook the entire vessel. Across the hunter fleet, bio-neural connections severed. Ships that had fought as one mind suddenly became confused individuals. Some fired on their own allies. Others fled in panic. The coordinated assault fell apart in minutes. The neural network is down, Taehyung reported from the New Seoul. The hunter fleet is in chaos, but the command ship's weapon was purely bioorganic, powered by the creature's own life force. Even without electronic systems, it continued to charge. 40 seconds to firing, Yunwoo warned. Huan gripped his command chair as the New Seoul closed the distance to the enemy vessel. All crew brace for impact. At the last second, something unexpected happened. The Council fleet, led by Talveth himself, moved between the New Seoul and the command ship. What are they doing? Jisoo gasped. On the main screen, Talveth's face appeared. The alien leader looked calm and determined. Captain Huan, you came to save us. Now let us save you. Talveth, get out of there, Huan shouted. You'll be destroyed. Perhaps, Talveth said with a sad smile. But you taught us something important. Sometimes you have to fight for what matters. The Council ships linked their energy shields and formed a barrier in front of the New Seoul. When the human ship struck the barrier, instead of being destroyed, it was caught and cushioned by the alien technology. Impossible, breathed Nari. They're using their shields as a net. The combined momentum of all the ships, human and alien together, smashed into the Hunter command ship. The bioorganic vessel, already damaged by the EMP blast, simply came apart under the impact. The planet-killer weapon fired once as the ship died, but the beam went wide, missing Haven 7 by thousands of kilometers and burning harmlessly into empty space. Inside the destroyed command ship, Jin Huan and his Marines found themselves in a chamber that was rapidly losing atmosphere. Emergency extraction, he called on his communicator. We need pickup now. A Council rescue ship appeared outside the wreckage, its gentle blue beams pulling the Marines to safety. As they were brought aboard, Kyungji looked back at the destruction they had caused. Sir, he said to Jin Huan. Did we just win? Jin Huan looked out at the scattered hunter fleet, ships fleeing in all directions without their command structure. Yeah, he said quietly. I think we did. 6 months later, Captain Huan stood in the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, all of them looking at him with a mixture of awe and respect. The Council formally recognizes the human species as guardians of the galaxy, Talveth announced. You answered our call for help when no one else would. You fought impossible odds to save people you had never met. You are true allies. Behind Huan, his crew stood at attention. They wore new uniforms now, marking them as the first human members of the Council Defense Force. Minji had been promoted to admiral, leading a new fleet of ships that combined human weapons with alien technology. Diplomat Soman stepped forward to accept the Council's formal treaty. On behalf of humanity, she said, we accept this alliance. We came to the stars looking for friends, and we found family. In the months that followed, human military advisors worked with alien species across the galaxy, teaching them what they called the Terran Doctrine, the art of fighting with determination instead of just technology. Nari led teams of engineers who learned to combine human kinetics with alien energy systems, creating weapons that were both effective and humane. Dr. Yuna established medical centers that could treat both human and alien physiology. But perhaps most importantly, Jisoo and her communications team worked to spread a simple message throughout the galaxy. No species would face extinction alone. If anyone called for help, humans would answer. The galaxy had called for allies and received something far better. They had received guardians who would never abandon their friends, no matter how impossible the odds. On Earth, children learned about the Battle of Haven 7 in their history classes. They learned about Captain Huan and his crew, who answered a call for help from strangers and changed the galaxy forever. And in the deep space monitoring stations, human operators listened to the void between stars, waiting for the next distress call, because that was what humans did. They helped, they protected, they never gave up. The galaxy had learned something important about the small blue planet on the outer rim. It had learned that when Deathworlders decided to be your friends,